talked in the past about fueling for long runs and short runs and using your training runs for practice for fueling for a race, but what about fueling for a race? You know, I started in the racing many years ago when everything was about carbs. This is back in the days when you had true carb loading, where you would eat carbs for 3 days and totally deplete yourself and gorge on carbs for 3 days and get yourself ready for a marathon that way, and had some success and probably just as many failures. But now that I've found the sweet spot of being able to be fat adapted and use carbs as necessary, life's a whole lot easier when it comes to fueling for races. Not necessarily got it all figured out by no means, but it's a lot easier. And so again, if you're doing a 5K, 10K half marathon, I don't really think you have much to worry about if you've gotten fat adapted and you know what you want to do. Because I would just start the day with a coffee with some coconut oil and butter in it and a few other things that I use. And if I'm a little hungry, I might have a S-Fuels bar. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about it because I know that I can go up to a half marathon without much problem at all. But when it comes to a marathon and up, it's a little more complicated, and I'm still working to find out what's the ideal area to be at for that. And part of that I found is to, again, start out much the same. Might take some other carbs in that are really slow releasing just so that I'm sort of preloaded for the race. But as I go into the race, especially for a marathon or something, I wouldn't probably take anything in fuel for the first couple hours other than some water with maybe some electrolytes. But after that, depending how long the race is, I would take in a slow releasing carb. Not a lot of carbs, but just something to deal with hunger. Again, like an S-Fuels bar or something along those lines. Those would work for me. As the race gets longer or I get closer to the end, or there's maybe a specific hills, I do find that it's good to use carbs strategically. And so I may use a gel at a certain point where there's a steep hill, or especially near the end of a race. My last 50K, I had a Coke, took some Coke at the last part of the race, and that was like super fuel at the end. Now, if I had farther to go, it would have had a negative effect because I would have had a crash or I had to find some more to keep me going. But the one thing I do know is that if you're truly fat working for you and you've gotten to where you can burn fat as a fuel, don't get worried that a few carbs will kick you out of doing that. Because if you are truly fat adapted, that will not happen. You will be able to switch back over and your body will burn the fuel that it's used to burning. And so taking a few carbs here and there can be advantageous if you use them strategically. Realizing you want to make sure you don't go too far, because carbs will deal with inflammation and things like that in your body, which you want to avoid, especially in a long race, and especially overall for health. And so again, what carbs you take in a race may largely play into what your goal is for that race and whether you're really racing or just running that race for your own benefit. And so you may have a different view of how you're going to fuel for that, but keep those in mind. That the bottom line is, if you become fat adapted, your world opens up in what you can truly eat. Because one, you won't need as much, and two is when you eat some carbs, you will be able to use them in a certain strategic place rather than worrying about eating a gel every 20 to 30 minutes and how you can pack those in. I've found in the ultras that I can carry everything I need for 50 miles if I have to, and just need to have someone be able to supply some water, and that's about it. Can't do that in the old days. I'd have gels packed in every corner and every pocket and every crevice I could put it. But at the moment, I don't need to do that. And so fat adaptation is the way to go, and keeping your carbs low and having your body being able to burn fat so that you can utilize that as your main fuel and then use carbs when they're needed.